Hey everybody, hope you're all doing well. My name is Steven and this is the Storytime channel. First things first, a big congratulations to last week's giveaway winner, Daniel Nixon. And as always, I do a giveaway every single week, so if you're interested, I'll tell you how to enter later on in the video. But today we have some malicious compliance stories, and our first story of the day is by LinkMom37, tricked insurance company into paying bills like they're supposed to. The insurance company that my employer uses has a monthly auto-deducted payment that comes from my credit card. I've paid faithfully for 4 years. A few months ago, the company went to run my payment, which declined because my credit card had expired. I had the new credit card, but the payment was attempted before I got around to changing it over. Rather than contact me to let me know that a payment was missed and attempt to get an alternate payment, the insurance company just terminated my coverage and denied all new claims to that account, including my well visits, etc. As soon as I realized what was going on, I called the company customer service number from my card to give them my new card number and reinstate my insurance. After 30 minutes of giving my information again, explaining and re-explaining, and finally just asking for a supervisor because the CSR was reading random selections out of a book or something and wasn't anywhere close to my issue, I discovered it wasn't even the right department. Got transferred to the correct department, where the woman rudely told me that, due to my incompetence, they terminated my coverage and would not be reinstating it. So I asked when I would be able to re-enroll, and was informed that I would not be able to re-enroll until my company entered open enrollment sometime unknown between January and March. I decided to let it go and just wait until then. Until I had a necessary medical issue come up where I absolutely needed it. I called again and asked when open enrollment would be. They didn't know, but she mentioned unless you have a major life change exemption, such as family death, marriage/divorce, or loss of previous insurance coverage. I say, "Excuse me, ma'am, sorry to interrupt, but I'd like to report a loss of previous insurance coverage. Not only was my insurance coverage started again, but was backdated to an effective date of when I started 4 years ago. Guess they'll be paying my bills again then." So let me ask you guys, who do you think is truly at fault here? Do you think it's OP's fault for not having their information correctly up to date when the automatic payment comes through? Or do you think it's the insurance company's fault for not giving a proper notification of declined payment and allowing them to change their payment info and just straight up canceling the insurance altogether? Let me know what you think in the comments down below. Our next story is by _abstract_insanity. I had to destroy it. As usual, there's a little backstory. A few days back, I bought a new headset. This worldwide situation made me play much more video games than usual, and over time I got a headache from my old and chunky headphones. The dude selling it recommended a lightly built Bluetooth thing. It looked okay, but I wasn't sure about it. The dude told me not to worry and to make sure to have a fully comprehensive insurance to be able to return it under any circumstances. So for the story, the headset was a piece of garbage. Sounded like speaking through a running fan, and only bass frequencies came through. So I went back to the store to have it exchanged or my money back. Since it was an in-ear piece, I thoroughly cleaned and disinfected it before leaving the house. Although I only used it for about 30 disappointing minutes. I went up to the customer service desk and was greeted by a very rude, "What's the problem?" from a woman that looked as if she could not decide between a Hannah Montana or a Kim Kardashian look. I stated how I think the item is broken, but I'm not sure since the quality was garbage from the first use on, and I'd want to return it, get my money back, or browse for another product. She refused to take it back for hygiene reasons and laughed at me when I showed her the comprehensive insurance slip. The good thing is, comprehensive insurance covers self-inflicted damage. So I smashed the basically brand new thing to pieces and got my money back by a very shocked looking service lady. I don't think I'll shop there again. I feel like I would probably put in some kind of complaint Ideally, get exactly that employee's name so that you can really hopefully get some kind of reprimanding in for them, because that's just a completely unacceptable way to treat a customer. I don't really care how bad of a day you're having. If somebody comes up and you're at the customer service desk, you can't be like, "What's the problem?" It just doesn't fly. This next story is by Fruchtfleder. Surprise me. Many moons ago, when I was a college student, I lived in a complex of student apartments. A friend of mine lived in another one right next to this one. We spent a lot of time together, watching movies, talking, gaming, and cooking. On one of our cooking nights, we decided to binge on sandwiches of every possible variety. I went to the kitchenette and asked him if he wanted one more and what he wanted on it. He just said, "Just surprise me." So I opened the fridge and looked through the contents. Cue malicious compliance. I spotted a jar of peri-peri peppers and thought, well, he likes hot spices very much, so I'll surprise him with some. We both really like peppers of any variety, so I knew it wouldn't harm him. I put ingredients on it, one of the peppers in the center and a slice of cheese on top so you couldn't see it, and made my way back to him trying not to grin. He munched happily on it until, a few bites in, he bit into the pepper, went completely red in the face, and got a serious case of the hiccups. I resolved into giggles and told him, "Well, you told me to surprise you." He wasn't mad and actually found it quite funny in the end. Does anybody know why you get the hiccups when you eat something spicy? I don't think it happens to me personally, but it seems to be such a common thing because I've seen a lot of other people experience hiccups whenever they have something spicy, so I'm kind of curious. This next story is by Moon Babe. Do you want to treat me like poop and threaten me? LOL, why are you still here? Here's a little backstory before we get into it. The story takes place my senior year of high school. I didn't have my license yet because my older brother's car fell apart and then he crashed the car that I was supposed to learn to drive in. The only person at the time that was capable of giving me a ride to and from school at the time was my stepdad. My stepdad got away with being abusive towards me and my older brothers for years until he was no longer allowed to live with us for reasons I'm not willing to get into as of 2014. He was still allowed to hang out around the house as long as he was helping out with the dogs and giving me a ride to school, both of which he barely did the bare minimum, meaning he was on his butt watching live streams of the streets of Lake Tahoe all day, and he had zero sense of urgency when it came to getting me to and from school. The story. My best friend used to come home with me every single day since our sophomore year, and she would stay with me till about 8 o'clock at night till her mom was able to pick her up from my place. So she practically lived with us. This particular day, there was something she needed to do at her house, so she couldn't come home with me, but she was still wanting a ride home. My dad is super bad when it comes to answering his phone, so I decided to ask him once he actually got to the school. As I was asking him if we could give her a ride home, my friend hopped into the back seat out of habit before my dad had a chance to answer. Understandably, this made my dad upset because he felt like I was forcing him to say yes. After we dropped off my friend, my dad went off on me in the car about how he's not a chauffeur and that it was extremely rude and disrespectful that I was asking if he could give her a ride home while she was already in the car. I agreed and I apologized for what happened, but he just kept yelling, saying that I was talking back while I was trying to apologize. The way he was yelling took me back to the way he treated me as a kid, and it made me feel defenseless and like I didn't have a voice. Until I remembered he wasn't the person keeping a roof over my head, nor was he the person paying my bills, and he wasn't the person keeping me fed. He could not lay a hand on me. He could not hurt me. He could no longer take things away from me. He had no power over me anymore. So I spoke up. I don't remember exactly what I said, but it was something along the lines of, if I didn't have to ask you for a ride, I wouldn't. This of course set him off and he threatened to kick me out of his car. So I called his bluff and said, "Cool, pull over, I'd rather walk." He fell silent as I repeated over and over for him to pull over and let me out. Of course, he didn't. He drove me all the rest of the way home and left me with a, "Don't you dare ask me for anything ever again." Yeah, don't worry, I won't. The malicious compliance. For the next few months, I would walk or ride my bike to school. I would leave the house each and every day with my head held high, knowing that it was pissing him off. My mom later told me that she would get a call or text from my dad every day complaining about how I hadn't asked him for a ride to school, that I hadn't apologized, and that I was being stubborn. Eventually, the reality of the situation started seeping in. The only reason he was allowed to stay around was if he helped out and took me to school, and he wasn't doing either, meaning that his justification for being in the house was no longer there. So as I was about to hop on my bike to ride to school, my dad rushed into the garage and stopped me, asking me if I wanted a ride to school. My dad doesn't like admitting when he's wrong and saying that he's sorry, so I knew this was the closest thing to an apology I was going to get. So I took him up on his offer, still opting to walk or ride my bike every once in a while to continue to show him that I don't need him. And to this day, I still do not ask him for anything. Also, my mom started kicking him out of the house sooner and eventually changing the locks so he couldn't come by whenever he wanted it anymore. Although it's really unfortunate that OP and their siblings had to experience the abuse that this man unjustly dished out to them, it must have felt so incredibly freeing in that moment to know that they had no more power over you and that OP was firmly in control of the future between the two of them. They could finally shove all that attitude right back in that man's face, and there was nothing they could do about it but accept it. It must have been very freeing. So quickly now, I just want to explain how to enter the giveaway. The way it works is I take every video that was uploaded in a given week, find one random comment that was relevant to the stories in that video, and I give them an Amazon gift card. It's that simple. So all you want to do to have the best chances to win is to leave a comment relevant to the video in some form on every video this week. That's all you have to do, and best of luck. And also, if you could like the videos too, that would help more than you could possibly imagine. And our final story of the day is by Heavy Riffs. Sure, we will deliver to the floor. For the better half of a year, I worked in a beverage distribution company and helped deliver the product. It was about a 3-to-1 beer, cider, seltzers, etc. to soft drink ratio on normal days. This particular day, however, was to a local liquor store and almost exclusively beer. The town I lived in at the time was very touristy and seasonally busy, a prime Summer Lake cabin type deal. The town would at least triple in population during the summer, and as such, the demand for beer always skyrocketed after Memorial Day. This liquor store we were delivering to had summer volumes second to only one other in the state for the franchise, only losing out to a store in a town 5+ times the size. As you can imagine, we had a huge haul the week of the 4th of July. We would typically bring about 2,000 cases Monday, Wednesday, and Fridays in the weeks leading up to the 4th. The Independence Day crowd was definitely forecasted to be thirsty, so the order that Wednesday was for a whopping 3,500 cases. Now, keep in mind, this is not a huge store, and the back storage room and walk-in coolers were also pretty small. It was quite the task to move things around and find enough space for everything. Anyway, the 4th comes around, and Shane and I are there at the crack of dawn unloading the truck. We have one extra summer helper along named Gabe. Gabe was one of the high-speed helpers, not known to slack or drag his feet at stops. The back room is packed to the gills, so we start hauling cartloads of beer into the cooler, which was basically wiped out since Monday. We do this for several hours, then replace the backroom beer with pallets from the truck. By noon, we had all the 20+ pallets inside the building or staged outside. Shane returned back to the warehouse for the next 1,500 or so cases, or around 15 more full pallets. At this point, Gabe and I barely have any room to put the suds. The last remaining spot would be a floor display near the customer's side of the cooler. The manager is gone, so we ask the assistant manager. The place is swamped with customers and he was pretty ornery. When asked about the rest of the beer, he said, "I don't know, go load up the display." We begin to say that we have a lot of beer and get interrupted. "I don't care how much you have left, go fill up that display." Very poor choice of words. Gabe and I bring some pallets over and start stacking, adding to the cases on the floor already. Same expiration dates, thank God, and begin to pile them up. Pretty soon, we are building stairs from the cases to stack even further. Shane got back, and by God, he brought us more and more pallets. Before you know it, Gabe is tossing cases to me, and we are all the way to the ceiling. We keep going. By the time we got done, we had 3 varieties of beer, 3 row across and about 6 deep, with a customer-friendly taper down to head height. The assistant manager just gaped at the mountain of suds and said, "Well, I had it coming." Although they probably very well could end up moving all 3,500 cases of it, I think somebody did a logistical error and should have had smaller but more frequent deliveries. But hey, I'm not a sud seller and I'm not an expert, so what do I know? But with that being said, that's all the time we have for today. So which of these stories was your favorite and why? Let me know in the comments down below. But besides that, if you enjoyed the video, please consider liking and subscribing and turn notifications on if you haven't so you'll never miss an upcoming video. Any little thing that you do helps the channel grow so much more. Whether it's commenting, subscribing, or just watching the video, thank you all so very much for supporting me right here on the Storytime channel. I hope you all have a wonderful day, and I'll see you all next time, right here on the Storytime channel.